There is a quote from Winston Churchill: "First we shape the architecture, then the architecture shapes us." And in this quote, for me, there is very much about the relationship between people and their buildings. I grew up for my first years in a very old house. The house was 250 years old. And in this little village there were many old buildings, most of them quite rotten down. And this always fascinated me and had an effect on my fantasy, because I always was thinking, what happens in these buildings? Who lives there? What stories happen there? And in the end, I'm sure that these connections of growing up without any TV or radio on the one hand, and in this environment, lead in the end to my special kind of architectural drawings and storytelling. So when I have the picture in my mind, I start drawing immediately the drawing itself, so I don't make sketches before. So I have it already in my mind, and start drawing first with pencil, then with ink, and in the end with watercolors. And do this normally on very old papers. So I'm a collector of old papers, and I like most the papers from the late 18th century, starting 19th century, because they are the absolutely best for watercolors you can find. There are many different kinds of papers I have. Here are some with writings on it. These are mostly old real estate acts and stuff like that. But as you can see, the aesthetics of it with different writings, like here, it is already beautiful. On these papers I don't have the space to work on it, but there are also many blanco papers, like here. You can see all these papers are empty, never used. During 200 years nobody used them. And the most beautiful thing about it, I think, is how it feels if you have it in your hands, and also the colors, because none of the papers has the same color as the others. So it's gray, it's brown, it's sometimes in a light red. And so if you work on these papers, you have already something on it. I love it also if the paper is a bit rotten like that, as you can see here where the worm's in. But this is also attractive for me as a material to look things very authentic. How were architect drawings made 200 years ago? And there was an area, let's say, between the beginning of the 19th century up to the Second World War, where where architects used one tool to draw, which is today totally disappeared. Nobody uses it anymore. In Germany it's called the Reißfeder, which is a very special tool for architectural drawing. And also the way they used watercolors, the styles they used. And I started to fake old styles from the 18th and 19th century just to make my drawings look like old documents. This has the effect that many people think, oh, these are old drawings about 150 years old, so the whole story must be true because I've got a document here in front of me. So this is another effect which I like to work with. After doing the combination of picture and text for so long, since a few months I try something new, and I discovered that you can use architectural plans to show something totally different. So it's not about drawing a building from outside, but a real architectural drawing with a ground section or a cross section. And I have fun at the moment to do more fantastic architecture, because for so many years I try to be very realistic, more bigger than life realistic. And what me fascinates in architecture drawing also are the great visions of architects like Ledoux in the 19th century, or fantastic architecture in the 20th century, where nobody had ever the purpose to really build this fantastic architecture, but just to develop an idea of an architecture. And so my newest drawings in this direction are plans from buildings never realized. And this one has a little Jules Verne touch from the end of the 19th century. It's called Une maison pour Monsieur La Fenestre. And Monsieur La Fenestre is a writer who wants to create his own reality. While the city outside is rainy and ugly and he don't want to see it, he has a working space, a studio, very large on the top of his house. There's a big wall painting all around where a beautiful sunset landscape is around him every day. And he wants to be on his own and creates his own reality. This all looks like 19th century, but in the end, the topic is very today life, because I think more and more people disappear in their own reality. They sit at home in virtual realities, isolate themselves from the rest of the people, and create their own world like a video game, stuff like that. And I wanted to show this with another kind of expression. And architecture drawing is very suitable to show such an effect. This story is about a little garden house. The little garden house is standing outside a city, alone in the landscape. It's pretty rotten down. Nobody lives in there. It seems empty. And it's since centuries in the property of the same family. At the end of the 70s, the police arrested a son of this family because of drug and weapon dealing. And so they searched in this little garden house for more drugs and weapons. And they found out that under this single room in the garden house was a cellar. And under the cellar, another cellar. And they were getting deeper and deeper into the earth. And the cellars became larger and larger. So they took some experts there, and the experts found out that this is the steeple of an ancient basilica from the 9th century. So the whole building is a tower. It's not a garden house. The garden house is just the top of a tower. And it's more than 1,000 years old. Nobody knows why the street level is today 26 meters higher than 1,000 years ago. And nobody knows why this family never told anybody about this building. So I have a lot of fun writing my stories. They are not very earnest. They are quite absurd in the end. There are many mysteries in my stories, and it's very humorous.